Hello and welcome to another episode of the All Things Considered CX podcast. I'm Bob Azman, your host, and I'm pleased that you're joining us again for another episode. And I think this one will be particularly interesting in terms of it being so current about some of the topics that we've been discussing within the CX profession recently. And my guest on today's podcast is Kevin Dean from ManoByte. Kevin, if you would, welcome. Glad to have you. And if you would, introduce yourself to our listeners.
Hey, it is great to be here with you, Bob. Super excited to have this conversation. So, Kevin Dean, I am the founder and CEO of ManoByte. ManoByte is a specialty consulting professional services agency that helps companies really better manage their processes around customer experience, leveraging technology so that they can get the most out of it. We've been in business since 2008, and just really excited to kind of help companies really navigate on how to successfully leverage technology to get better results for their customers.
That's one of the reasons I was really glad that Kevin agreed to come on the podcast, because the whole idea of leveraging technologies and business process management, I think, is really imperative to better experiences. And we're going to get into all of that. But Kevin, first, I've got to ask you the question we always ask our guests is, what's your career path? How did you end up founding a company, obviously very successful, 14 years plus in business? Where are you at? What are you thinking about? What's your career path?
Yeah, so very interesting. I kind of stumbled into it, right? It's like I found a passion early on, but I didn't know what that meant. I started actually started out in sales, like retail sales. And while I was in retail sales, I started using, and this was right as I'm getting ready to go into school. I was like always figuring out, I guess some people say, how do I be lazy, right? As a young person, like, so you wanted to like make things automated for yourself, so I didn't have to repeatedly do things, right? And so, um, this is a real story. So, of course, I was doing some temp work for Sears Roebuck and Company, right? And they wanted me to do this manual data entry of customers into a database. This was early on. And I'm like, man, this stinks. I do not like sitting here typing all of this data. And so I just like one day figured out, I can connect um, some software. I can create a software program that would automatically pull from their printer all this information, because this was early. They wouldn't have technology we had. Like, oh, I can figure this out, where I wrote this program that automatically did all the typing for me. So I didn't have to do it, right? So I just pulled it out of the registers through their system instead of them sending me the paper, automatically collected the information. And so I'm like, oh, my job is done. But then I thought, oh, you know what? I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to, contact their customers based on, what they purchased. So let me just also pull that information into the database. And so I built this little database to make my life easier, because I was trying to be lazy. And it's like, oh, this is solving business problems. So it went from a dumb kid trying to be lazy to, oh, I can figure out how to use technology to solve business problems. So that's kind of how this got started early on. My degree is in computer information science, so that helped as well. And then it's just kind of evolved and grown since then. I'm still trying to figure out how to help people be lazy.
I bet your marketing team doesn't use that as a logo, though, right? Or as a brand?
No, they don't use that as a logo. But at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's like, why have people do stuff they shouldn't be doing? It's a waste of time.
Right. Exactly. And I think it's intriguing. I started in retail sales too out of college, and like at a management training program or something. I can't remember what it was called, but I still rely on what I learned back then from people that have been in retail for many, many years about a customer and about how to serve them. And
Mhm.
and it was, I mean, it was really good training for me, and I brought it forward for a long time.
Yeah, I agree. You know, some of the things that I remember learning back then is how to, one, understand people, try to solve for what their true problem is, not what they say the problem is. And then three, create an experience for them that really made them feel good, right? And if you could do that, you were going to be successful. So those are the three elements that I think are still important today.
Mm-hmm. And that's, boy, that's getting really at the core of experience management, right, Kevin? And I think sometimes we lose sight of that. I wonder why that is. I mean, those sound so simple. They're complicated, right? But if we pursue those goals that you just mentioned, we're going to be successful. But why do we seem to lose sight of that every once in a while?
You know why? And it's funny, it goes back to we get so busy doing work that we don't have time to solve for the real problem, and that is taking care of the customer. We're so busy trying to collect data. We're so busy trying to analyze data. We're so busy trying to get this report to my boss. We're so busy trying to do this administrative stuff that it's easy to lose sight of what the real purpose is, right? It's like, oh, let me stop and think, what is it that I really need to be doing and why? And then let me just solve for that. And if I can solve for that thing, all the other stuff that we get so tied down to, we think that are important, actually weeds away, right? And so it's like, oh, wait a minute. This is what is really important. Let me focus on that, and all this other stuff, I'm just gonna let that fall because it doesn't matter. Because something's always gonna fall. I think we're not sometimes good at choosing the right things that we should just let fall.
Mm, very good point. Uh, so, Kevin, you deal with a lot of clients. You deal with some
Mhm.
very large organizations. Uh, what do you see as the trend? If we take what you just said, what do you see as the trend you're hearing from these customers? Obviously, they're coming to you with a problem or need, looking for a solution. But what are you hearing when you're interacting with them and talking to them about, customers,
Yeah,
experience?
there's a couple of things that I hear a lot of. And again, I think it kind of goes back to most of the times when people come to us, they're coming to us for the wrong reason, but a lot of times we help them think what's the right reason, right? And you and I were talking about this earlier. Oftentimes, and most times, when people are coming to us because they have to spend money, right, to work with us, they're coming to us because they're trying to solve an operational problem, right? And it's like, oh, I have this operational problem. And if I can solve this operational problem, then I can cut my cost because I've got all of the execs yelling at me, you gotta cut cost, right? And so they come to us saying, oh, I've got to cut costs. How do we automate our business processes for customer experience? How do we make our reps more efficient? Because if I can make them more efficient, I'm going to not have to hire that next set of 10 or 100 reps because I've got processes in place that can make me more efficient. Therefore, I'm going to save money, and therefore my CFO isn't going to yell at me, right? So that's honestly
Yes.
how a lot of the conversations start. But we always say, okay, we hear that you want to cut cost, but let's solve for the customer. And if we solve for the customer, then you're going to give the customer a better experience. And while doing so, you're going to cut costs because you're going to leverage technology the right way. Because technology is more than ever a strategic advantage for companies that is underutilized. And so if we're solving for the customer first, and we say, okay, we want to solve for the customer, let's leverage technology the right way, then you're going to be more efficient and you're going to cut costs while at the first point solving for the customer. And it will work every single time.
It's fascinating to hear you talk about that. when I was in corporations working full time and providing solutions to customers. About this time of year after the budgeting process was wrapped up, we would be inundated with calls from potential clients, and they would say the exact same thing you said: is I have to cut costs. The budget just came through. We're 10 million over, 10% over, whatever the number is, and we have to cut costs. How fast can you? And then we would fill in the blank. And we'd always try to step back, like you said, and try to get to the core of the problem. And sometimes clients went that way, and other times they were like, I just got to cut costs. So
Yep.
you quickly saw the difference in strategy there from different companies, as you mentioned.
100%, right? And there is even though they're trying to solve the same problem, sometimes you can't cut through the red tape in order to get them there, and so they have to pick a path. But one of the things that we like to do as an organization is, even if they pick I just got to cut costs, as we're trying to help them cut costs, we're still always talking to them about how can we create a better customer experience while cutting costs, right? And so you may not be able to get to everything that's most valuable for creating a better customer experience, but you sure can still solve a lot, especially if you pick the right technology partners to help you along that journey. You're going to be able to make a better customer experience for people right now.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So I said this earlier, we're going to talk about the evolution of technology, but this has been really a good preface to that. Where are we at, Kevin? What is happening in leveraging technology? So much about AI and chat GPT and so many things. Kind of sort through all of that for us and tell us where we're at.
So we're on an interesting evolution that is a little bit challenging right now. If we're being honest, the evolution right now is challenging. There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of confusion, and there's a lot of fear, right, in the space. And what we're hearing and seeing in these areas are that there are some people who are excited about what new technology, I'm not going to say new technology, I'll get back to that in a minute, what technology can do for people that they now have access to. So there's a lot of excitement from that perspective. There's a lot of confusion around what is AI, what's Gen AI, what are large language models, how is it different from what we've already had? People will say, you know what, we've had a chatbot on our site for years. It doesn't work, right? And they don't understand that there's a difference, right? So there's a lot of that. Then there's the fear that we hear. Oh, Gen AI is going to take my job. Oh, they're not going to need us anymore. So you have these three levels that people are on. And it is quite interesting to see where people are in that evolution. But I think if we look back, a lot of what is out there today is not new. So we have to say that, AI it's in itself is not new, right? It's not new. When I was in school years ago, decades ago, I studied AI, right? That's what we learned about. Now, a lot of the things that we were studying, you couldn't really do. A lot of it was theoretical, and only very, very large organizations were testing and playing around with it. But all of that was there, right? It's been around. A lot of the things, and even from a social perspective, I remember that movie. You might remember this movie. It was a long time ago, like back in 2000. That one with Tom Cruise, I think it was, what was the name of that movie? Minority Report. Minority Report. I mean, in that movie, they were using a whole bunch of AI and technology that we see today. So these concepts aren't new. 10 years ago, I published a blog post on our ManoByte blog. You can still find it today, talking about how natural language processing can help with customer experience. That was 10 years ago, right?
Wow.
So these concepts are not new, okay? What's new is this. What's new is that the accessibility that individuals and companies have to this technology now has been given fully to everybody. So now and the speed in which you can implement and which you can grow has changed because of the access to technology, both from a hardware and software perspective. So these concepts are not new. It's the access and the visibility that everybody has to it. That's what's new. And now because of that, everybody can now start leveraging this technology to help push their business forward, because you don't have to be a developer. You don't have to have, a degree in computer information science, right? You don't have to understand, business, quote unquote, business intelligence tools in order to be able to go in and get access and to leverage these tools. Now, anybody, my kids, can go out and start using these tools and create solutions, right? That's what's changed. That's what's different. And so now everybody has the ability at speed and at scale to implement solutions that can, in a very short period of time, allow them to create better experiences for their customers. That's what's changed. The technology's been around for a long time. It's not new. Now it's just everybody has access and understanding to it. That's the timeline.
So Kevin, along those, with that access, now the question is, are we being effective now that we have the access?
No.
Right. So, okay. There ends the lesson.
No,
right.
no. And here's why we aren't being effective, and here's where the problem lies. Whenever there's a new technology, everybody thinks of it as, this is my silver bullet, right? Like, oh, this is my silver bullet. Like, I'm going to be able to solve right away all these problems. Well, Gen AI, and there is a difference between AI and Gen AI, but Gen AI only works, and it's only as good as the data that it has access to. That's the big thing. And so people don't have a Gen AI problem. They have a business data problem. And that's a fundamental problem, right? They have data issues. They have gaps in data. They have data that's disparate and that people don't have access to. They have old data, right? They have data that only sits in people's heads and not any place documented, right? Those are the issues that people have. It's not the technology, it's really a data problem. And so businesses have to first solve for that data problem. Now, there are tools and technologies out there now today that help companies solve for that data problem. So we work with a platform called Maven AGI, and Maven AGI is a great platform because one of the things that it does, yes, it will create this amazing, we'll say for the audience's perspective, it will create agents that you can serve up to customers in various ways, either through a chat bot, through a form, customer service facing, or however. But it really gives the tool, the value of this tool is that it helps companies identify where there are gaps in knowledge, and then gives them the ability to go and solve for those gaps in knowledge so that it can give your customer better answers quicker. Because chat bots have been around for a long time, and really agents are now presenting themselves in the form of a chat bot in the customer experience space, right? And everybody knows, whether it's a chat bot that's on your website, or we can talk about, the IVR, the phone systems, they're really just the same. It's just the way that you interact with them is voice. We've hated those for years. we've hated them for years because they weren't solving for my question, my problem, and they were really more just decision trees, where if this, say that, and if I don't have the exact answer in the right way to this, then it's not going to give you anything. So this is why when we pick up the phone, we always push agent, 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 0000, because
Right.
we know that that decision tree isn't going to work.
Right.
So the evolution, so people shouldn't be thinking about the way that Gen AI presents chatbots either on a website or IVR based. You think of them from the standpoint of it's not a decision tree, right? It's no longer a decision tree, but it's actually going through its knowledge, finding the answer for you and giving you the answer that you need without you having to go through a decision tree. You can say, this is my problem. I want a refund on this ticket that I just bought because it was invalid, or I had the wrong date, or there was an error, or whatever it was. You just tell it, and then it goes back and does what you need without you having to walk through this decision tree. Press 1 if it's a ticket you bought last week. Press 2 if your buddy bought it, right? You don't have to go through that decision tree. You just tell it, oh, this is my problem. And now the Gen AI solutions will go through that for you, and just like you're a human.
So it's definitely moving in the direction of a better experience for customers.
Oh,
right?
100%.
Yeah.
And I'll give an example. One of this is an example of TripAdvisor. So TripAdvisor, they use maybe an AGI, and they were able to quickly get to 93% of their customer questions being answered through the platform without any rep interaction, right? And they were able to do that in a 3-month time period. So did it cut costs? You better believe it, right? When you think about what's your ticket cost, right? What's your cost per ticket, right? If you can drop that cost per ticket down from like maybe $200 per cost per ticket to like $5 cost per ticket, that's a huge savings.
Right.
But it's also a better customer experience because the customers are like, oh, I have my question answered quicker than I ever had before, right? I believe the resolution time for TripAdvisor went to like, it decreased by 60%. That's a huge decrease in time,
Yes.
right? And so all of those metrics lead to a better customer experience. You aren't shooting to drive down the metrics first. You're looking to create the customer experience better first, and then those other things will come naturally, like I was saying earlier.
Right. So Kevin, in that case, what you said on the IVR side, we've hated those for years. On this, in your description of TripAdvisor, obviously customer adoption rates must have been high, where customers said, I'm going for it, right? It's working.
Yeah.
How did they overcome that? Or obviously they did, but was there any?
So the issue is that it's all about how you deliver that experience, right? Because the issue is that all customers, they start down that path and they start down that journey, right? Nobody wants to talk to a human first. We just don't. Nobody does. But we go there because we don't get the answer any other way. And so everyone's journey, and I know that you and I were talking about, everybody wants to figure out this journey. Everybody's journey starts electronically nowadays, right? Whether it's online, whether it's through the phone system. And even that first touch on the phone for everybody, it's always going to be, getting the voice piece first. But and I'm okay with that if you can give me my answer quickly, right? On the phone, I heard a statistic that like you got to be able to solve on the phone a customer's question in 3 minutes, right? But a lot of companies make their customers wait for over 3 minutes, right? I think they actually make them wait for 5 minutes before you even get to somebody. And if you can reduce the amount of prompts that it takes, then that time is reduced. And if you can give your customer the answer quickly without them having to wait for a rep, then I'm happy, right? It's not the technology that I don't like. I don't like that I have to wait so long and then I get the wrong answer.
Right.
It's the wrong answer that frustrates the customers. It's the no answer that frustrates the customers. Um, I talked to a lot of CS folks, right? And there's this debate about empathy, right? And
Right.
will technology take away the empathy? Look, I don't need for you to give me a hug. I don't need for you to hold my hand, right? I don't need for you to tell me I understand. I just want my problem solved, right? That's all that I want for you. And so I have that debate with a lot of CX folks. They're like, oh, we got to have empathy. Well, you don't need the empathy if you solve my problem, right?
Right.
Only need the empathy if you can't
No.
solve my problem. So,
Right.
and these new tools and new technologies get me to, solving my question quicker. And so the empathy that we feel like we have to give customers as CX folks, we don't need to, because the ultimate solution is I just want my problem solved, right? I don't need
Right.
a
Well,
I
there's
like hugs, but I don't need one from
right,
the service person.
right, from somebody I don't know. So it's interesting you say that, because there's been lots of studies done on service recovery processes. And there's an argument that says if a mistake is going to happen or a question is going to be needed to be answered from a customer, if you handle that quickly and effectively and don't let it happen a second time, loyalty and retention rates will actually go up. Now, that doesn't mean you make a lot of mistakes to get higher retention. It says when that happens, when a mistake or an inquiry needs to be answered, you do that quickly and effectively, customers love you. And it's exactly what you're saying. That study's 25 years old. It's exactly what you're saying is, look, just solve my problem, right? And don't make me call you back again or contact you on the same thing again twice. And you're right. You don't need empathy for that. It's like I like to believe that customers' needs are pretty basic. Like you just said, solve my problem. Get my order to me. Whatever the case
That's
is,
it.
it's pretty basic. It's when we don't do that, kind of goes back to our start of our conversation today. So when we don't do that, customers get upset at us.
Oh, 100%. And look, I'm not, I know your listeners and your audience, and some people may be cringing at some of the things that I'm saying. And I get it. Like, there 100% are times when the problem that a customer has is challenging, right? And it needs to be escalated to a human. 100%. But let's be real on that end too, and say,
Right.
when my problem needs to be escalated to a human, it's a toss-up on how that human is going to solve my problem, because that human may not, and most of the times does not, have the knowledge that they need in order to solve the problem, right? And that's why you have, your tier 1 customer support. You've got your tier 2 customer support. Then you've got your manager, right? So you have these tiers of support that, again, because you have to send somebody through each of these tiers every time that you have to send me to a different person to solve my problem, my frustration level goes up, right? And so one of the ways that these tools, like a Maven AGI or other Gen AI tools that are out there, help is from the standpoint that you can now bring the knowledge level of every rep up to the same level. Therefore, meaning that I don't have to escalate to a senior rep for a problem, because I'm using tools in the background that give me the same answers. And so as a human, on the first attempt, can solve a problem. That was the case with HubSpot. So HubSpot has, most people know HubSpot. They're a CRM company. They have, 250,000 customers, and each of those customers have a varying degree of implementation of their CRM. And HubSpot had the problem that they had newer reps who were just coming on board, and they've had senior reps, right? And so when a customer would call in with a problem, they wanted to use a tool that would allow every rep to have access to the same knowledge so that they could answer the question of the customer quicker, right? And so using tools, they were able to say, oh, we're now giving everybody the same knowledge. So that newer rep had the same knowledge base now as that senior rep. And with confidence that the way that they were going to solve for the problem was the same. In addition, one of the things that HubSpot was having a challenge with was that they're a technology company, and sometimes their customers needed code. Well, in the past, when they were having these newer reps, the newer reps had to say, oh, we're going to get back with you because now I'm going to have to go and get one of our solutions engineer on the line to help you with the code problem. Well, using a Gen AI solution, that rep who's brand new, maybe been with the company for a month, can get the answer to the question, and they would use the Gen AI solution to generate the code that they needed to give to the customer. And so solving not only the answer, but having the code that they needed to solve for the problem on the very first call, right? So that's powerful.
That is powerful. Yeah. No question about it. And then I think if we couple that with giving those agents the authority to solve as well, so they get the answer, now they can solve and give them the authority. It's a powerful approach.
It's powerful. And so like these two case studies really, I hope, help your audience to see the power that's at companies' fingertips to not only create a better customer experience, but at the same time, as you're doing this, you're reducing cost.
Absolutely. And that's the key, is that combination, right? It's reducing cost while enhancing the experience. And that's always the push and pull we have. Wow, we could talk for another hour, Kevin. The time goes by so quickly. Before I let you go, a final question for you is, so where are we going from here, Kevin? Look at your crystal ball and tell us, what does the future hold for us?
I get asked this question a lot. And my answer is, I'm excited because I can't answer that question because things are changing so fast and so quickly. I'm excited to see where we're going. I think that there's going to be a ton of new innovations, the way that we get to answers that really are going to revolutionize the way that we help customers. And I say that because the way that we think about things today is going to change completely. Over the next, 18 months to 36 months, we're going to see this extreme shift in just the way that we approach doing business on every level. And so a lot of the ways that we think about doing things, customer service, taking phone calls, right? It's going to change, just like it changed when we got the iPhone, right? Everything changed, right?
Right.
This is a fundamental change. Like the way that we do things is going to completely change. I can't tell you what that's going to look like, but I can tell you that this conversation that we're having today, 18 months, we're going to look back and laugh. We don't even think that way anymore. And that's what's cool and exciting. That's what's cool and exciting.
Let's set a date for 18 months from now, Kevin. We'll come back together on the podcast and we'll do exactly that. I love that idea.
I love it. Say,
right.
Kev, you were so wrong.
Right. Kevin, this has been great. If our listeners want to learn more about you and ManoByte, I know you're on LinkedIn, but how is the best way that they can get info on ManoByte?
Yeah, just go out to our website, manobyte.com. Check us out there. You can also go to my personal website, kjdean.com. Check me out there. We'd love to interact with you, exchange ideas, and help you solve business problems.
We appreciate that, Kevin. Absolutely a great conversation and look forward to more of them in this area. So, listeners, this has been another episode of the All Things Considered CX podcast. So happy to have Kevin Dean from ManoByte join us today. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your network. And as always, stay tuned for another episode in the near future. Thank you until we talk again.